Hello, everybody. My name is Lisa Rose. I'm the Queer Screen Festival Director. Welcome to this Q&A for the wonderful film Gossamer Folds. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge and pay my respects to the traditional custodians of the land of where I'm streaming from, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. Pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. Sovereignty was never ceded in Australia. This was and always will be Aboriginal land. So here we are for the Q&A of Gossamer Folds. Without any further ado, I'm going to bring in the three very, very special guests who are here for this interview. First off, I'm going to bring in the producer of the film, Yardley Smith. Hello, Yardley.
Hi, thank you so much for having us.
Absolute pleasure. Now I'm going to bring in the director of the film, Lisa Donato.
Hi.
Hello. And lucky last but not least, the wonderful star of the film, Alexandra Grey.
Hi.
Thank you all so much for coming along. I'm sure some people in the audience have probably watched the film and some people may not have watched it yet. So hopefully they'll be able to get something extra out of the insights that you can give me. So the first thing I'm going to ask is I'm Yardley. So I believe you've kind of been the driver behind this project, that you found the script and became a bit of a passion project. So can you talk a little bit about like what drew you to the script and how you found it?
Yes, actually, the script was brought to me by an old friend of mine named Adam Carl, who's actually a producer on the film, and he is friends with the writer Bridget Flannery, and he'd read the script some years ago, and he said, but I think now it had been optioned and then it was free again, and he said, I think you might really like it. And so I read it, and I really did love it right out of the gate. And what I really loved about it was that it was this very, it was a beautiful, very simple story about two people who don't feel like they belong in their own environments, basically in their own families, and they end up finding each other just as friends. There's Gossamer, who is an African-American trans woman living in 1986 in the Midwest in the United States. And then this little boy, Tate, moves next door with his family who are trying to relocate. And I just loved that they were these two misfits who find a place of belonging with each other in this friendship. And oh, by the way, one of them happens to be trans. So that while we do address some of the trauma of being discriminated against just because you're living your truth, the film doesn't actually dwell on that. And I really loved that. I loved the optimism of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So Lisa, how did you come about to be a part of the project? I've shown some of your short films before, so it's really exciting to be able to show your first feature.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, for the last 6 years, I've been making films for and about, the LGBTQ community. And this is very much of a fairy tale story for me. Yardley, I was recommended to the producing team as a director, and they had watched all of my work one day in their office, and they thought I was the person for the job. And, it was my first big director for hire job. And I really am indebted to Yardley forever for giving me this opportunity. I mean, honestly, it was amazing. So.
And Lisa was the perfect person for it. I'm a big believer that the right people, if you proceed with passion and integrity, success will follow. And part of that is that the right people show up for the right job and do the most extraordinary work. And that happened really across the board.
Yeah, which is an excellent segue into my next question about the wonderful Alexandra Grey, and how you found Alexandra, who gives an extraordinary performance.
Alexandra, so we only considered trans actresses for this role. And nowadays, actually, it's very rare to meet producers in person. Everybody gets put on tape. I've been in the business for almost 40 years, and I rarely get a job from being on tape. So it's a tough nut to crack, is my point. But we got these submissions from our wonderful casting director, and Alexandra, I think, was the second or third tape that I watched, and she was right at, like, that was it. It was a done deal. She was the one to beat. Nobody ever even came close. And I always say, you know, when I tell this story, is that there is also a sort of a belief in Hollywood that, well, God, you can't make your decision that fast. What if you miss something? What if somebody better comes along? I'm like, I just don't fly that way. I feel I think Lisa, I'm sure, and Alexandra could probably speak to the same thing. I have a little switch. It literally is like this physical sensation. It's small, but it's unmistakable. And if that gets flipped, then I know that I've made the right choice for what I want to invest my time, my money, my energy, my passion into. And that was Alexandra and Lisa in this film, really from the word go.
Yes, so Alexandra, how was the experience for you? I believe you had to the audition tape. You had to do quite an intense scene, I think, which is one of the most best scenes in the entire film. And can you talk a little about that audition process, and also obviously being the lead in your first feature film?
Sure. It was a very long audition. Yeah, it's a very long audition, and that particular scene I think is also one of Lisa's favorite scenes as well. And yeah, it was, I mean, it was just beautiful. I connected right away with the character. And I always tell myself when I get auditions, you know, don't get too attached to it, you know, do the work. And when you get it, just leave it. But when I first got it, I was, oh my gosh, this is me, you know, on this paper. This is me back when I was, you know, maybe 18 or, you know, 17. I don't even remember how old she was.
25.
25. Well, we shot it back when I was 25. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, it was just a really beautiful audition process. And yeah, and you asked something else. Oh, it being my first feature film. Yeah. I mean, I'm just still in so much amazement. I can't believe that I got that opportunity because, you know, I usually don't get an opportunity. And so to really do this where it was specific to my experience as a Black trans woman. And I often don't get lots of auditions that are specifically written for Black trans women. So I always love to see those roles being written for us, you know, because I think our stories are so valid and people want to see them and they should see them. And so I'm really excited. And this is one of the first that I feel like I'm seeing in a feature film. So I'm excited.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it really is. It's really a fantastic film and such a positive portrayal. There obviously are some aspects of the film. There is quite a lot of transphobic language, and obviously there is some transphobic violence in the film as well. So obviously being set in 1986, was that part of the reason of why you thought that it was important to include that, because it obviously was something that was very prevalent then, and it is obviously still prevalent now. So I just wondered if you could talk about why, even though so much of the film is incredibly sweet, you thought that it was necessary to still have that element.
Lisa speaks really well to that.
Yeah. So, you know, what's funny is that, I mean, I don't know if I've ever told Yardley and Alexandra this, but when I used to watch films and there was this like derogatory, you know, violent language against gay people or trans people, I made a promise to myself that I was never going to direct a film that used that kind of language. And it was so interesting to read the script and be in that position of making that choice. And I think the film is so different in the way that it tackles or uses, I guess, these derogatory slurs, in that we're using it for the purpose of teaching how hate is learned. And we're not using it, you know, a lot of films, I think, make the mistake to use violent language to maybe show how a character is antagonistic or, you know, just for the sake of using it. And it's always at the expense of a trans person or a gay person. This film does not do that. It's to teach a lesson and then to revolt against using it. So that made me feel so good. It was almost like flipping it on its head.
Yeah, because language obviously is such a key element. Like I just absolutely adore the whole aspect of the Tate character in the dictionary and how he's constantly going to the dictionary and how, you know, having to look up those words, and the fact that it really does, you know, so clearly show you that hate is learnt and that.
Yeah, exactly. And like, you know, language, that's the key, is that language doesn't mean, words don't mean anything until you attribute meaning to them. And as a kid is learning that is like the lesson of what he's learning. And it's such a beautiful closure of Gossamer you know, saying define yourself, and ultimately empowering him with that choice of deciding who he gets to be for the rest of his life. And I just love that full circle moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, music is quite a key element in the film as well. And you got an original Sarah McLachlan piece, which is like, how did you do that?
Just like Yardley said, you know, when you line up to create something with authenticity and integrity, people show up. And I was a huge Sarah McLachlan fan because I grew up with Lilith Fair. I saw Lilith Fair across the country at least 17 to 20 times.
That is peak lesbian. What you're
saying. It's peak lesbian. And also Sarah, you know, if you listen to her music, this film is bittersweet, and all of her music is bittersweet. I mean, she could sing about beautiful stuff and make it sound sad, or sing about sad stuff and make it sound beautiful. And I loved that juxtaposition of her songwriting and music. But a long story short is that our composer, Aaron Zigman, who's phenomenal and very well known in the industry, was able to call her producer. We sent her a rough cut of the film at the very beginning, and she sent us a draft of the song a month later, and now we have it. So
yeah, it's so great. I wanted to just talk quickly about it because you had a trans cinematographer, correct? Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so was that a conscious choice to do that?
Well, we wanted to include as many people from the LGBTQ plus community as possible, but it was Lisa who brought us the beautiful Ava Benjamin.
Mm-hmm. And you've worked with her before, Alexandra, is that correct?
Yeah. Well? Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Yes. We actually worked on, I want to say maybe 5 projects so far now. We just wrapped one in March together as well. So it was really nice. We kind of had that connection before. She laughs at all my jokes.
Oh, well, that's always a good thing. You got to keep those people around.
All my jokes. I mean, I think I am the most hilarious thing to Ava, Miss Ava Benjamin. Okay, she will tell you anything I say. I could move one way, and I'm like, it's funny. So, yeah, she's a great spirit, and she's really, really detailed. You know, and I think that's important too, because, you know, we maybe didn't have as much, you know, behind the scenes as you can. I mean, it's not, you don't always get to have that when you're doing indie films. But, you know, it was nice to see that she took her time and she took her care with certain things, and she wanted certain lighting and certain, you know, settings and stuff to be just right to really fit the scene. And so I think that's great, and it makes you feel safe as another trans person, to know that you have people behind the scenes as well who are of the community, because you know that their goal as well is to keep you safe, because they want to be safe. So yeah,
absolutely. Can we just talk a little bit more about the rest of the cast, because you obviously got a fantastic cast together, and how the process of getting all those people together. That's my question. That's it.
Well, I'll speak a little bit to it, and then Lisa can take over. Once we identified Alexandra as the one to beat, nobody even came close. Jackson Robert Scott was also at the top of our list, and he plays Tate. And Jackson Robert Scott works more than all of us here on this panel put together in like the last 10 years. Not even kidding. That kid, like, nobody's business, and well-deserved. And I think he's almost 12 now. And so he was about to go into production on the television series he did. Do you remember what it's called? Like The Key, the thing.
Lock and Key.
Yes. There. See, like that. And so he was going to be gone. And so 2 things. One, I loved the movie, and I didn't want to wait for other people to come along for us to have to wait around and figure out how we're going to raise the money. So my production company that I co-founded, we financed the film. And 2, that meant also that we could go as soon as possible, which we needed to do if we wanted to get Jackson to play Tate. So once we sort of decided that was going to be our path, it was all hands on deck, just You've probably never done pre-pro that fast, have you, Lisa?
Never, especially on a first feature.
And then other people sent us tape. I mean, Lisa, why don't you talk about the wonderful Franklin Ojeda Smith, who is, I mean, it really is though we found a retired professor to come and play a retired professor.
What, really? Because he gives a very convincing performance as a retired professor.
Yeah.
I know. I love
He pursued his acting dream later in his life. He was a professor and then he started acting much later. It was this big dream of his. And then he started doing voiceover work, and now he's doing a lot more like film and TV. But he does such a good Edward.
Yeah. He was great. I really, that was one of the most authentic things about the film. I think the relationship between Gossamer and her father.
Yeah, and we also, I do want to mention our casting director. We had a great casting director named Russell Boast, and he was really pivotal in, suggesting names, and then it was all, like Yardley said, all hands on deck from producers and me that we just cast so fast.
I wanted to also ask about the title of the film. Obviously, Gossamer is the lead character. What is the folds element? Is that part of the? If I missed something that I should have picked up,
part of the poem, isn't it?
It's part of a poem that's referenced that Gossamer says in a scene with Tate, and that's how she picked her name. But also, there's a play on words. Folds, as in she's a fashion designer, so the folds of fabric, and then she folds. She hits. She leaves town and she folds on her small town and goes and pursues her big city dream.
Yeah. So obviously the film ends, for those who haven't watched it, spoiler alert, but there's a bit of, you have a bit of, I was very anxious at the end of the film. I thought it was going to possibly end in a different way, but it ends with quite a lot of optimism. And was that a really important thing for you to make sure that there was a really beautiful, optimistic ending?
It was for us, and it's it was actually a quite a discussion, because certainly the reality is that many trans lives, and certainly trans women of color, their endings are not happy and not optimistic. So one would not necessarily be out of place suggesting that back in 1986 that was also the truth. But it's also a story that has is often told, I think, in entertainment, usually written by non-trans writers. And so we had an opportunity to have the end play out differently. And still, though, with questions. I do feel as though while Gossamer gets to go and pursue her dream, then as now, as Alexandra, was alluding to before, it's not entirely safe. And so for how long, right? That was the question that I went away with, as I also believe in giving a nod to what's real and to keep the conversation that is essential afloat and top of mind.
Yeah. So, sorry, did you want to add something?
No. I guess I just will say too. I know that was definitely something that we discussed early on in the project, and I would probably get in trouble, but I'm always on the side of I want to tell the harsh truth, but I think also it's great. That's what's so great about being able to collaborate with so many wonderful people, because you get to see a different perspective. And Jen Richards, who plays my best friend in the film, I think she gives a great perspective. We were on one of these panels, and she said something about not having the trans person or the Black person, have to die in order to teach the lesson. Whereas for me, I'm very much about like, I want to give you that lesson because sometimes it's necessary. I've been to the movies, and I can think back to a movie, The Hate U Give, which was about police brutality. And it took me 20 minutes to leave the theater because I was so touched by this story. And so I think there's so many different ways to do it. And in the end, I'm happy that we took the approach. I think we're ahead of our time. I think we took the approach of saying, this is what it should be like. This is what it can look like. And so I think that came out very beautiful. But we did have those discussions about how do we best, tell her story in that way.
Yeah, and obviously, Alexandra, you joined us a couple of months ago on a panel about Disclosure, which was obviously an incredible documentary on Netflix about trans representation on screen. And so that obviously dropped, was it 2 months ago, was it? Or 3 months? I've lost all track of time. It's 2020. No one knows what's happening. It's obviously been a really short amount of time since that happened, but have you already noticed a little bit of a change in the industry and what is sort of happening or not?
Well, sure. I mean, I sure, I guess. I mean, a lot of auditions that I've had as of recent, Yardley is just like, a lot of
not impactful about it.
yeah, a lot of the auditions that I had. I mean, I've auditioned for maybe 5 things this week, which I don't fit the description of any of them. But I mean, they were great opportunities. They're roles that are series regular on primetime shows, and I'm usually always the wild card, right? Meaning that's why I was so happy about Gossamer, because it was specifically written for a Black trans woman. And the reality is a lot of the projects that I auditioned for, I never really lose roles when they're written specifically for me. So I have noticed a little bit of a shift in that, and I'm just learning to, in my own journey, to say, hey, I'm just grateful to be invited to the room. I know what I bring. I know that I want to represent Black trans women in this way, and say that we're artists, and we're just talented. I think Disclosure has a lot to do with that, and people are saying, let's take the chance. And it just so happens that Yardley Smith said, let's take the chance 2 years ago when we first shot it. So, yeah.
Good old Yardley Smith. You've always been such a wonderful advocate and ally for the LGBTIQ community. So props to you. And as my fellow Lisa on this panel will know that, if I had $1 for the amount of times that someone had sung Lisa, It's Your Birthday to me. As a 42-year-old Lisa, I would have many dollars.
By the way, people sing that to me too because I do Lisa Simpson. So even though my name is Yardley, they're like, I don't care about that. I'm going to sing that song to you.
Actually,
thank you.
Yardley, I was just going to say, Yardley sent me a video of her singing it to me, that song.
Oh,
the whole thing. As Lisa Simpson. It was,
you could die happy now.
It was amazing.
Oh my God.
So I've just got one final question to wrap up, which is, what is it that, what is the message? What is the thing that you want people to really take from this film after watching it?
You go, Lise.
Yeah, so so directing this film, I wasn't sure that this was going to be a film for the queer community. And it's been received beautifully at all the LGBTQ festivals, and I'm so happy. I'm so happy for my community and our community. But more than anything, what I've noticed through making this film, which is what I want to continue after, which is these conversations that are happening when people don't know if they know a trans person, and they're having that conversation of what it means to be trans for the very first time. So I want your rural neighbor in Kansas or Louisiana or Chicago or Montana to watch this film, on Netflix or in this theater, hopefully early next year. Yeah. And to go and cook some hamburgers and talk about this movie and have that conversation for the first time. And just, I just want to, change happens one conversation at a time. I'm an activist first, and I just want this movie to bring those conversations into new spaces.
Fabulous. That is an excellent answer. Okay, so I just want to give a massive thank you to all 3 of you for joining us here virtually in Australia for this Q&A. If you haven't been convinced to watch the film now, I'm just going to play the trailer so that you can watch it and really go and buy a ticket. You've got until the 27th of September to view the film on demand Australia-wide.
Thank you so much for having me.
So how's the new house?
We love it. And thank you again for giving me last week off so I could get us settled. See you in the morning, Phyllis.
Both of you?
He'll be with his dad tomorrow.
See your fire burning.
Hey, Dad.
Hey, buddy. Francis, did you see this? Next door to a tranny.
You met them new neighbors yet?
What's up, little man? Thought I'd have to chase him down and tackle him just to get him to say hello.
Why don't you like the girl next door?
A girl.
Her name is Gossamer.
We just don't want you talking to people we don't know. I work in the city, and Tate's dad is unavailable, and I know it's a great deal to ask.
Excuse me, Miss Franny. How would Tate like to hang out with us for the day?
We'll be fine. We have no other plans other than looking after Jimbo.
Just keep Tate away from that deviant across the driveway, all right?
We really have to go.
I think she was intimidated by you, old man.
Gossamer was born a boy, wasn't she?
I haven't always accepted this.
Let me be me.
I'm your father, boy. You will start treating me with a greater level of respect.
You don't have a clue what I gotta go through on a daily basis just to live my life.
Who are you talking to?
I bet he's got another woman over there.
He is leaving me and my mom to make a new family.
Where's Tate?
He's at a new friend's house. Now get out.
You okay? Why don't you just come over here with us?
I will not allow you to remove Tate from the premises.
Perhaps if you had that kind of concern for your own son, you wouldn't have this freak on your hands.
Sticks and stones, little man.
Don't think I won't let you out just because you're wearing a dress.
Well, this is my ass-kicking dress.
It may not seem like it, but I am trying.
I'm not for all palates. I'm more of an acquired taste.
We needed this.
So did we.
Fabulous. That was the trailer. I cut you all off when you were going to say your goodbyes. So now we will say our goodbyes. Sorry.
Oh my gosh.
First time using this, don't know what I'm doing. But anyway, thank you again so much, everybody.
Thank you. Alexandra, are you going to cry?
Just give me an Oscar already. No, I mean, the trailer is so good. I don't think I've really seen that in full. I mean, that is so, I mean, it's so good, right?
Yeah.
It is.
I mean, I really want to see it. I'm like, I want to see that movie.
Me
and
too.
you never see that. I mean, that the whole trailer talks about trans. It's like the whole time. It's like it's about trans. That's beautiful.
Yep.
Wow.
Yes.
Well,
Wow.
I'm really glad I played it now. So, yeah.
Thank you so much for having us, Lisa.
Thank you.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yep.
I will end the broadcast now.
Okay.
Okay. Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.